Hi book lovers, my name is Cristina and welcome back to Cozy Novel Niche. Today I'm here with a book haul, and this is a very special one because this year in spring I went to Paris with my mom. It was my third time being in Paris, but it was my very first time being there with my mom. It was a dream of her, a long time dream of her to go there, so I really wanted to gift it to her. And we just had three of the best days ever, even if it was rainy and windy and it was so cold, but it didn't matter because it was such a lovely bonding experience, mother-daughter experience. And of course I went book shopping, and of course I have some books to show you. And so without further ado, let me get into the books, because I think that in the future I will be able to release not the vlog, but like the collection of pictures that I got from Paris. But meanwhile, let's get to the books. So the very first two books that I have here, I bought them at Shakespeare & Co, of course. And it was actually my very first time buying some books there, because last time when I went to Paris, I just saw the shop from outside and the line was insane, so I wasn't doing it. This time we decided to get in, and I was actually kind of surprised by the fact that it almost had only books in English. I mean, Shakespeare & Co, it should have suggested me something, but apparently I was expecting more French books, but it almost has none. So I was a little bit disappointed because I wanted something in French. And then I got to a very small section of children's book in French, and so I just kind of browsed through it and I found two books that I got immediately, and then unfortunately they're both the beginning of a series apparently, but I mean, it is what it is. It's just my destiny as a reader. I always pick up apparently series. So without further ado, the very first one that I have here is a hardback edition. It has this lovely cover, and the book is Elisabeth sous les toits by Vincent Cuvelier and Guillaume Bianco. And this book, first of all, the ending pages, I mean, they're so cute. They're all small croissants and cats and just strange creatures. So this book is the first one in, I don't know if a series or a trilogy or what it is supposed to be, but it has illustrations inside. It's all in black and white inside, and it's set in 1920 in Paris. So we're following Elisabeth, who is just a young orphan girl who ends up arriving to the capital, to Paris, and just with a photo of her parents who she's trying to find, and she ends up living on the roofs or under the roofs in Paris. So I'm very intrigued by the story, and apparently she discovers these strange mischievous creatures, and they are called the Schmolls. And I don't know anything else about this book except the fact that I really adore this edition. It's small, tiny, but then it has a bit of content. I mean, it has 350 pages almost, and it's just beautiful. It has so many illustrations, and I cannot get through it. It says that it's Tom 1, so volume 1, so there are more, but they weren't present in the shop at that moment. Then the next one that I got is again just a masterpiece. I mean, look at it. It's Mémoires de la Forêt, and I don't know if you can see it. It's this beauty. And not only it's beautiful on the outside, it's also amazing on the inside, because it has tons of illustrations. I mean, like full colored illustrations. They are so beautiful. And of this book there was a volume 2 and 3. Actually, I just had no space in my luggage, unfortunately, and this book seems to be so special. So in this one we are following our main protagonist, who is a librarian of sorts, and I don't know if it's a shop or a library exactly, I will discover it, in which he collects the books that all the animals of the forest, and the librarian himself is, of course, an animal of the forest. All the animals can write a book, a memoir of their life, and just leave it there. And one day a character arrives who is searching desperately for his book that he wrote back in the days, because he's losing his memories and he really needs to reread the book that he wrote to understand what happened and who were the people in his life, what he's done, and so on. And what makes it so much more special is that the author, Michael Brun-Arnault, is actually someone who has worked for 10 years by helping people that are affected by Alzheimer. And so this makes this journey in retrieving your memories so much more meaningful. I think that he will have a very gentle and insightful approach to this matter. And being it a children's book, I have such high hopes for this. It could be such a marvelous experience, maybe a little bit bittersweet, but I still expect a lot from it. The next 3 books, I wasn't feeling guilty just because they're tiny, and so yeah, I wasn't feeling guilty. But I got them, all 3 of them, in a very, very special place. I got them in Versailles, which is one of my favorite places in the world. I visited Versailles all the 3 times that I visited Paris. That's how much I love that place. I can spend there days and days probably if you leave me there. And so I always try and buy something from their shop. And this time I bought 3 different books. So the first one is a non-fiction book in French, of course, and it's written by Alexandre Maral, who actually is the general conservator at the Palace of Versailles. I don't know if conservator is the right word in English, but he's the one who preserves, kind of one of the people who is in charge of preserving the chateau, the castle of Versailles. And this is a non-fiction book called Femmes de Versailles, or Women of Versailles. It seems to be very tiny, but these books are very tricky because they seem tiny, but then it is 500 pages, but it's so floppy. I love it. It's such tiny and floppy and just, yeah, I adore it. And this one goes through a lot of women that kind of impacted Versailles and made it what it is. And so we're going through like quite renowned names, like for example Marie Antoinette or Marie Leczinska, or all the queens that we had during the reigns of or not the queens, the favorites that we had during the reigns of Louis the 14th, 15th, 16th, like for example Madame du Barry or Madame de Pompadour. But we also have some lesser known names here, and that's what I'm excited about, to know a little bit more and also to see them in like with the focus of how their lives impacted the castle as we know it, as it is right now. So I just adore that place for a lot of reasons. It really picks up my imagination, it just tickles it and makes me wonder, and so I'm so glad to have this book to explore a little bit more. Then the other book that I have here is one that is fiction. It's written by Elisabeth de Feydeau, sorry for the pronunciation, and it's called Jean-Louis Fargeon, Parfumeur de Marie-Antoinette. And this is the story, apparently, of the perfumer, the man who creates the perfumes of Marie Antoinette. And what I enjoyed about this, first of all, is that in 2023, it was the year that I just rediscovered my love for perfumes. And so this time when I was in Paris, I bought like a bunch of things to try as far as perfumes are concerned. And when I saw this book, I just needed to have it. Even more so because it says here that this perfumer is apparently, I won't call him Republican, but he was kind of against monarchy or the style life, but still he was working for Marie Antoinette. And so I'm just so curious to see where it goes. Just to see something fictional in that historical setting is always fascinating for me. And this one is actually really tiny. It's 215 pages, so I'm definitely curious to see what story could be packed in this, and I will let you know as soon as I will read it. And the last one I got because, first of all, the cover, second of all, it was recommended by the bookseller, not the bookseller, the shops, the woman who was working behind the counter. I mean, my English today, yeah. And it was highly recommended, with actually a note written down that I photographed and kept for myself as a memory. And this is by Jeanne Toulet, and it's called Le Montespan. Just look at this colorful, colorful cover. And again, this one is tiny. It's 300 pages. But again, how do they pack so many pages in such tiny books? It's very, very floppy as the other ones. And this is so fascinating because this is the take on Monsieur Le Montespan, who was the husband of Madame de Montespan, and she was one of the very much renowned favorites of the king. So she was like the love affair of the king. And unfortunately, and a very unusual thing for the time that we're talking about, she and her husband had a pretty great relationship, and apparently her husband was really in love with her. And so to know that she was chosen by the king, usually it was such an honor and people were very chill with it, but he was not. And so when she was chosen as a favorite by the king, he decided to install like antlers on his carriage just to show that he was feeling bitter about it. And I just cannot wait to read it. I mean, it's so funny, and I'm not sure if it's true or not. I will discover it later. But I mean, it's such a funny concept. I mean, funny as it could be like watching a reality TV show. Not funny because it's funny if it happens in real life, but like in that context, it kinda is. So yeah, this is it. These are the 5 books that I got in Paris. I was quite proud of myself. 5 books, but they just occupied a tiny little space in my luggage that I kept for books purposefully. So I wasn't feeling too guilty. And yeah, these are the books. I hope to get to them sooner or later. They are all in French, so I'm struggling a little bit more with my French readings, just because I always need to overcome like this imaginary obstacle in my mind when I'm reading in French, because I'm a little bit slower. That's the only reason. But I hope that I will read them as soon as possible. And if you've read any of those books, or if you're interested by them, just let me know down in the comments. And I will see you very, very soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye! Ciao!